Geo, no.
Okay, good.
No pressure. Yeah, I'm taking it in stride. See what happens. I'm glad
Let's
you guys
kick it off.
enjoyed it though. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm just
Mike, how did you decide to pick the two guys that you featured?
honestly, yeah, that's a great question. It was a super last minute experience as far as putting it all together. Skip helped me get up there. And then it was honestly, I kind of went in blind. I had an
Okay.
idea of what I wanted to do structurally, but I didn't know anybody and I didn't know exactly how I was going to tackle it. So I kind of just showed up to Palisades and walked around and met people and listened in, and that kind of worked out great because I really enjoyed, like, there's some stuff that I didn't use, but I mostly used a little bit from everyone that I interviewed, and everyone really did kind of a great job. So yeah, it was just kind of happenstance, honestly.
John, it's better to be lucky than good. He's lucky.
Well, you know, a little of both, right?
Yeah.
Born on St. Patrick's Day.
Well, thanks for joining us. Tropical John's on the line. My name is Skip Brand, and I'm just so happy to be here at SFRC in San Anselmo.
Beautiful story.
Thank you. And I think the folks at Raccoon are on, and also at HRC. But let's get started. Mike, it's your show.
Absolutely. So John, I'm just going to ask a couple questions to you and Skip. I loved, especially, you know, as a first time experiencer of Western states, seeing the passion that was there, you know, common among the runners and also among crew, pacers, and just spectators all being there and all like making this event possible. It was so tangible and so powerful and so unique. And I'm curious, you know, how you compare that to other things in the sporting world, and if that is even comparable, or it seems so unique to me.
I don't know that it is really comparable. I think it's such a difficult endeavor, and it's one of the rare sports where an average Joe like me or Skip can line up with a Jim Walmsley or a Katie Scheid, and you know, you can play basketball, but you're not playing with Curry and LeBron, right? And you can play golf, but you're not playing with the PGA guys. So this is a little bit unique. And what I think probably people that have gone to the trouble of showing up tonight and watching this with us appreciate is just how difficult and demanding it is, really, for everybody. You know, from Walmsley on down, it's I mean, I know Jim pretty well, and I've talked to him at length, and he's like, I don't understand how people can do this for 28, 29, 30 hours. You know, it takes him half as long, and he's cooked. And he's like, near as I can tell, the 29-hour people are working as hard as I am. They just, you know, have different parents than I had. And so, you know, part of what goes to the core of the sport is that it's difficult for everybody. And even the hotshots, the pros, the people that win races, they have a complete appreciation for the last finisher and the 27-hour people and the middle of the pack people, because it's hard for them and they get it. And I don't think you get that in very many other sports. I can go out and try to play golf, and I'd be laughed at by anybody who was a pro. And that's not the case here. So that's really special. And just because it's so difficult and it lasts so long, I think people get into their heads a lot more than they do in most sports. Most sports, you're just worried about where the ball is or where the guy you're defending is or whatever. And here you have a lot of time to zen out and get into your own head. And that kind of makes it special. And I think what, you know, besides the history and stuff, what makes Western States so special is that it's so exclusive in terms of being able to get in. There's only 369 runners, and over 9,000 people have qualified and applied. So if you get a spot, you know it's really special. And maybe these days, most runners understand that it's pretty much a once in a lifetime opportunity. The odds of getting in again in any time soon are pretty low. And so you know, you try to do the best you can with the day you can, and you completely lay it all out there. It's not like when I ran Western a lot in the 90s, early 2000s, even late 80s, there was a lottery, but the odds of getting in were about 50-50. So if you had a bad day, you'd probably get in again next year or the year after. And now the odds of getting in are like 1% or something. So if you have a bad day, you just suck it up and deal with it, because you're probably not going to get another chance. And
I
that
would
makes
only add, John, that I mean, one, I just love watching it because it's just a whole lot, John, of problem solving. Because whether you're going to be at 30 hours or a blind runner at 30 hours and 31 minutes, you're on the edge, right? It's on the edge for everybody. And now I think what's unique about Western, at least as me as a fan, whether you see him at the escarpment or later, when you're sometimes on the edge, bad things happen. So you get to watch people like Ryan, who had a tough day, battle back, but you feel great with a finish. And one of the things I remember forever, there's just great stories in it when it's that passion's there. And I just remember Ryan Sands' wife, right? She's pregnant. She's from South Africa. And we're with you, John, you brought me to when we could go over there to Dusty. And she comes in and there's one runner we know, Jim's ahead, and she has great humor. And she's like, Ryan goes, "Where's Jim?" And she's like, "Don't worry about Jim. He's right where he needs to be." And he's like, "Come on, tell me how far." 20 minutes, you'll be fine. You need him 20 minutes out of you. And sure enough, something happens to Jim and Ryan wins. She did not predict that, but everybody's trying to problem solve and keep everybody going. And it just makes it fun for those of us that go to the escarpment and get jacked up, because you're out in the same course with the pros, and then your runner is trying to get it 24 hours, and it's Todd Bertoloni, and he's puking, and it's just a sport unlike any other where you're in it, and you're in it even if you're not running it. You could be crew or pacing or what have you. And I think that's unique, and that's an American phenomenon because the Europeans don't even have pacers, so it's great.
Yeah, I felt almost like I was participating in a way, being that close to the course and being that close to all of it, just filming stuff. It was quite an experience. I would like to ask, you guys both have a ton of experience with this race. John, I know you've been involved with it in a huge way for a very long time. And I think it's such a memorable thing for so many people. And it's incredible when something like that can continue to make unique memories after so many years. So if you guys could maybe both, Skip, maybe we could start with you, share some memory or really unique thing that you took away from this year specifically.
I'll let John kick it off, and I'll bat cleanup.
Yeah, I think Skip and I may have the same memory, and that's Will Barkin. He's visually impaired, he's legally blind. He has a degenerative condition. It's going to just get a little bit worse every year. He can see, but he has no peripheral vision, and his even like the little, I can't really describe it because I'm not Will, but the vision he has is impaired, and so he needs a guide. And when the trail is rough, the guide needs to call out where the rocks are and stuff, and so that really slows him down. He's a really capable runner, but his vision impairment really impedes his ability to move down a rough trail. And for him to come within 31 seconds of making the timeline, I mean, I would happily give him a minute or two from my finish. It's like, and he was gracious about it. He did the best he could. I'm sure he feels good about his experience. And, he made it. He just didn't make it quite in time. And, that's a remarkable memory from this year's race. I mean, there's, you have friends and people that are running, you're always going to remember them and their experiences when you see them and stuff. But that was really, really the takeaway for me this year.
I'll do that, but I'll do a different one, right? I'll try. I guess I'll call him Rodfather, but I don't know him that well to call him that. But by being able to see Rod at Lake Snow on a Thursday before the run, he's like, "Hey, I think I'm going to jump into the marathon and get the course record." And you always love that. North Face was a sponsor, and obviously I'd let him in. And Gina was great to do that. She's the director. But he was joking kind of around a little bit of like, "Yeah, all I need to do is get the course record there, do well at Canyons, and then win Western." And we was saying it jokingly, right? because he's not a boaster ever. I don't want to imply that. But sure enough, sometimes things like that happen. In watching Jim and Rod trade some times, and hell, Rod still had a backpack on for at the finish. I'm like, dump that thing so you could run faster. But to see a race like that, it was even fun for me because we didn't know who was in second or third. There was a little bit of a mix up on things when Dylan and the guys were calling it. And that's just like incredible to have three people that close at the front. So to have drama, which hurts me, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to give him 31 seconds. I want to give him everything for my store and reward the blind runner. But I also give credit for those at the front. Rod did a hell of a month. I mean, I've never seen 3 races that well in literally almost a month's time. And John, you thought having Lake Sonoma in April would be great to be rested for Western. He was at Canyons, dude, and won the damn thing and came back. That's hard, right?
Yeah.
What else
Awesome.
you got?
Well, this is kind of a basic question, but I was thinking, again, kind of going hand in hand with the long history of the race, some of the changes you guys have seen over the years, positive and negative. I'm sure there's a multitude of both.
Yeah, the biggest change, I think, is just the number of people that want to run it. I mean, the sport has exploded in the last 15, 20 years. I ran my first ultra, I'm going to show my age here now, in 1980. And there were 3,700 about ultra runners in the world in 1980. And this year there's going to be 800,000.
Wow.
And so a race with a limitation on how many runners it can take that's popular just kind of gets out of control, right? And so, you know, we keep on the board, we kept tweaking the lottery, making it a little more difficult, changing the rules a little bit to allow people better chances as they kept going. Recently we changed so you didn't have to have consecutive entries. You could keep your entries if you missed a year for qualifying, all that kind of stuff. But that's a big deal. And then just the international component of it. So 25 years ago, Tony Rossman, my colleague on the Western States board for years and years and years, and we went to a race in Europe and we ran, and they knew about Western States, but wasn't that big of a deal. And we kind of came away with, we really need to make our race more international. And we pushed it really hard. And it's insane. The first 7 women, if you count Katie Scheid as being French instead of from Maine, because she lives in France, the first 7 women were from 7 different countries.
That's cool.
And, you know, we used to, like 30 years ago, we kept 25 spots in the race for foreign runners. And we didn't count Canada in that because they weren't foreign enough. I'm not sure if we counted Texas or not, but we had a hard time filling 25 spots.
That's crazy.
And this year in the lottery, we had almost 2,000 foreign runners apply.
That's crazy.
So, you know, that's just really a cool thing. And to go down the list and see people from all over the damn place running a race. We had runners from 30-some countries in the race this year, and 60-some countries in the lottery. So, to me, that's really an amazing thing. It used to be a little local Northern California race, and then it became more of a like national race. But now it's truly an international event.
It was cool to see all the different flags, all the different runners, kind of when they were coming through on the finish line.
Western's always been internationally flagged, I thought, John, but some of the things that I think are good changes. I mean, I think Holly and everybody, shout out to all those folks at HRC watching this, but I would say the live stream is a radically cool change in what Ted does on tracking. Now you can find your runner instantly where they're at. The technology has been really a good change. And it means everybody at the shop, John, may know more than you and I at Forest Hill of what's going on. And that's radically cool, right? the other thing I would say that's kind of, I would say it's a good change, but we'll have to figure out how to deal with it. I thought what the ladies did, that's Corinne Malcolm and Hillary Ann with We're Here for the Ladies Race. I thought that was an incredible, not only shirt, now that they do WTF, Women's Trail Running Foundation. I thought that was a good kind of, at least fun grassroots thing. And I think now that we have so many more women in Western, and we'll see it in races, make sure. I mean, hell, I fired myself at Lake Sonoma to get more women in the 50. I think that's going to be fun to see because it's really fun. The women and Courtney and team and Scheid, those performances are not only outstanding at Western, but everywhere. It's incredible how the American women are so good, and women in general.
Yeah. They really notched it up. I mean, Ann Trayson, who's like an absolute legend in the sport, won Western States 14 times.
That's unbelievable.
Which is really unbelievable. And she won most of those races by like 2-3 hours. I mean, she was, you know, a league of one, basically, and the 90s and 2000s. And her best time would not have put her in the top 10 this year. Is kind of unfathomable.
And I would say the other that just add to it, and I'd love your opinion, John. Mike got to see it for the first time. I call it the Western Show. It's literally Forest Hill and the escarpment. John, I remember 10 years ago, I think you just wanted us to get away from you. You sent all the HRC people up the hill. There weren't that many people on the hill when we had our sound box, and now it's crazy. Forest Hill is crazy, and the finish for the golden hour is crazy. I think it's a whole, you could be underwhelmed sometimes when you're from somewhere else coming over to go, wait, you finish on a track, that's it? And then they see the stories around the track and the sprint around, and it just all fits. It's kind of, but it's a lot of people now.
Yeah.
So many people, absolutely. Got just a couple more questions for you guys, just because I think we'll probably have to
audience
wrap up
one, right?
soon. Yeah, we do. I was going to ask, what's you want to?
Chrissy's got a, let's just do it. That way you get some from the audience. I saw it come in. So Chrissy Pie, her question is what? She sent it to you.
Yeah, she said that we always hear stories about the pros, and she wanted to hear some memorable stories about the amateurs that run this race.
You got a good amateur story, John?
Well, I mean, every amateur has a story, right? So there's every runner in a race has a story. This is an epic endeavor. The word is overused, but it really is. And those of us who have had the privilege of running this race, every year is different. You have high points and low points inevitably in 100. Some days go better than others. Some days you kind of accomplish what you were hoping to. Some days you don't. And that's part of the fun. If it were easy, the challenge, you know, I mean, it was just a matter of, you know, like running a 10K, I have a good day, I run 40 minutes. I have a bad day, I run 42 minutes. You know, it's not like that. You know, you have a good day and you make it in with your knuckles dragging on the ground. You have a bad day and you're throwing up on your shoes at mile 50, you know. So it's everybody has a story. We always, there's kind of a long standing joke about how Western States is a year-round event because you spend 6 months training for it, and then you run it, and then you spend the next 6 months talking about it. And so everybody who ran has a story.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure their spouses will get tired of hearing those stories, but it's, you know, you can pick any individual runner in the race, and I don't know if there's anybody in the shop tonight who ran, but I'm sure they could probably talk your ear off in the next hour about what happened to them this year.
And I'll just add, I thought, Mike, you did a great job. The story about the man from Ireland was good. He's, first of all, I'm a sucker for an accent. It is wickedly bad feet. Ryan's story, who didn't really have his A race, I'm sure, but, you know, got through it, and literally looking at his, I thought looking at the buckle was just intense for me. So I thought you did a good job catching amateur stories yourself. So I'll just end it there.
I appreciate it. That's what I was going to say too. I mean, like you asked me, John, how I landed on those people, and it was so by chance, you know. Those were the two guys I landed on, and they both had really, you know, genuine and moving stories. So it's almost like, you know, I'm sure everyone does to a degree. So that's really cool. I want to ask you guys, obviously such a challenging experience for the runners and for everyone to put this race together, but there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes as well. And I kind of touched on the fire damage and everything that's, you know, shaped the landscape over the last however many years, forever, but more intensely recently. And I know I didn't even know during the race that there was a somewhat
little fire.
yeah, and I
Remember
didn't
that
even hear
Yeah.
about this till like after the golden hour, after the
That's right.
before the ceremony. So it's crazy what goes on behind the scenes, and how incredible the people that, you know, keep us safe out there and every day also. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that specifically, and maybe more in general about.
Maybe John, you could tell them just the work they had to do to get it open for the race. a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
mean, there was a big fire a couple years ago.
Yeah,
It burned about 14 miles of the trail, basically from Volcano Canyon just before Forest Hill all the way back to Devil's Thumb.
Yeah.
Much of that burned. It was a little bit spotty in places, but much of it burned. And then another section right around when you leave Forest Hill and head down Cal Street Loop. The first couple of miles of trail burned pretty badly in there. Same fire. And last year, several, I think it was 9,000 hours of volunteer work to get the trail ready for the race. And we have an incredible team of volunteers, you know, sophisticated volunteers, people that know how to build trails, people that are licensed chainsaw sawyers and stuff. And so, you know, but this is, you know, there was another fire about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago that burned down to the swinging bridge from kind of up around Dusty Corners. And then about 20 years ago, there was a fire in the Duncan Canyon area that kept us off the trail down there for several years. So, you know, fire is a part of the ecosystem in the Sierra foothills. It's mostly forested, and, you know, fire is a thing, and it's a regenerative part of nature, but it definitely screws with the race. And so it's you know, just dealing with that on a regular basis. During the race this year, there was a small fire, just kind of a brush fire, but it was around the Green Gate area, just outside of where the runners come up the Green Gate around mile 80. And the access road that the crews use was closed for a couple hours. It turns out they were able to get on top of the fire really quickly and open it back up. So it really wasn't much of an impact, except for I think people that ran around 18 to 20 hours might not have been able to see their crew at Green Gate if they had one there.
and we all have the fire warning things because we live at Lake Sonoma, so that warning went to us. And all I'll add, John, is I think when you do work on a trail, you feel like you're part of the race. That's the neat part of trail work and volunteering. And matter of fact, I'll just end with this. That's why we have 57 firemen that are running free already. The race just opened for a 100-miler, because we need to pay these men and women back, because all races, not just Western, Lake Sonoma, Talbot Rim Trail, we're all facing fires. And it's kind of amazing the work that everybody does to get a trail race to happen. So hats off to those firemen and firewomen. I'm just in a position with some other friends to be able to raise GoFundMe money and get them to race. But as you know, we lost 8 miles of that course. Everybody who helped bring it back and the firemen who put it out, they don't have to put a fire out at Lake Sonoma or have to put a fire out at Western. They can let that burn, but they do. And I think that's so cool that we're able to recover from that and keep running. It's great.
We have one more crowd audience question I wanted to look at. I could kind of read it from Sam. Yeah, I was surprised. I was trying really. I think I understand the gist of it, which I'm thankfully still. They're starting to go a little.
Only have one rock star.
Yeah. Sam asked Mike, now that you've filmed your first ultra, what's the next race you want to film? Do you want to keep doing projects with trail runners? Yeah, that kind of ties in with what you just briefly touched on, Skip, and what I was gonna ask to you both next. I definitely intend to keep working in the space. It was such a gratifying experience. And it was also like, a super quick execution. So I'm looking forward to being able to do something in the same vein with a lot more preparation, and hopefully resources and ability to, get a little deeper. Skip and I and everybody up at HRC and Lake Sonoma and stuff, we've been talking about the potential for kind of getting behind the scenes and showing what it takes to create this 100-mile race that you guys are putting on. And going hand in hand with that, we're thinking about potentially touching on some more, talking about fires like we were just talking about, and weaving some stories together. And so it's still all coming together, but
there's a bunch of fire folks that are already in. We'll go up to the Park Fire in Butte because there's a couple smoke jumpers that signed up while there's 67,000 men and women on that fire. They don't have much downtime, but a couple of them heard the rumor they could get in free to a race. By the way, it's not a huge give. It's a $300 race. And we're happy to have them in, but there's a couple of them that aren't really runners, but they're U.S. Forest Service, which is 14 days on and 2 days off. To me, that's just a blue collar, hard ass, tough person and tough woman and man. And they're going to go from fireman or firewoman to ultra runners. And I think you can tell the story and watch them do it. But I think they're tough people. They'll be fine. That'd be a good story.
Yeah. So yeah, very excited for that. That'll be awesome.
John, anything to close?
No, we need to maybe get Mike to show up to Quad Dipsy on Thanksgiving weekend. As a race I started back in the 80s, and Ted is the new race director now, and it's got its own, it's only 28 miles, but it's a really hard course, and it's kind of a gateway drug for 100-mile type people. So that might be a good one to film. Very scenic course.
And I'll add one, October 19th. It's another Ted race. Ted's quite popular. Thank gosh he can run a better race than I can, I hope. But I get to partner with Ted on the 100K. We're about, Ted, 80% full. So those out there that want to get in, get in. It's a great 100K, and it's related to Western. We're a late season Western States qualifier. We're proud to have that and be part of Western with that. And it's October 19th, right before Javelina. So it's a perfect time to run. And it's gorgeous in October. That race has not been run in October just once. And it's really nice to not have it in summer when it's super hot. Oh, well, the race, the 100 is the Sufferfest. We call both, well, John called the race One Rugged Race originally, right, John?
Yeah.
And then we went to Relentless because the 50 feels like paper cuts. But the only time I've seen someone run and smile during the 100K was Daniel Jones. And he was a nobody who came out the night before, got to Kira and got in it. Everybody else, the 100K is one wickedly hard race with 14,500 vert. The 100's going to be well more than 25,000 vert. So you'll get your money's worth in both of them. But I do like the 100K. We ran it 4 years in a row. It's fun. It's going to be fun this year. But thank you for asking about the 100-miler. It's Sufferfest, we call it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for the time. I had a great time going on this journey with you guys, and yeah, hopefully many more. Great to see you, John.
Thanks, John.
Nice work, Mike. Thanks.
Yep, I appreciate it.
Nice job. Mike, killer job.
Dude, you guys are like
so good.